Welcome back to the Theology of the Buddy, a podcast for Catholics who love the beauty of the Church's sacred tradition. This is episode 82. My name is Chris, and I am joined today by my proselytizing Canadian co-hosts, Mike and Brooke. Before we begin, if you haven't yet, please make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening, and please leave us a 5-star review. We'd also really love for you to follow us on social media. You can find all of the links to connect with us at theologyofthebuddy.com. All right, so on today's episode, we are talking about a bit of our story. We're answering a question that was submitted to us a few weeks ago by our friend Jen Van Awesome, who asked in particular, at what point did your faith become your own and not something inherited from your parents? So we're going to be diving into that question today. We're going to be talking in particular with Mike and find out what his story is. And we'll eventually get through all of the co-hosts, but we're going to start at least today with Mike's story. So before we begin though, how are you guys doing? It's so good to see you.
Awesome. Great.
I made so much pie today. I made 7 chicken pot pies and 6 beef pies. And I made 1 big pumpkin pie and 4 small pumpkin pies. And I made some chicken noodle soup and I made some curry. I'm great.
Our listeners might be wondering if maybe you're having one of those manic episodes that people with bipolar have.
You know what? When I'm under stress, the first thing I do is like everything and anything I can get my hands on. And I 100% think that this is a melancholic choleric problem. Like if I'm under any kind of stress, I clean things or I cook the heck out of my kitchen.
Absolutely.
I mean, it benefits everybody if I'm having an existential crisis, doesn't it?
Brooke will be like, I'm stressed. Someone better not invite me over for dinner or I'm going to have a meltdown. Oh, someone needs me to make 20 pies in the next hour? Can do. I'm all over it. That's just you.
That's wild.
No, really, I'm great. Mike was really craving meat pies, and I was just like, I'm just gonna make all these pies. And I'm just like, I have dough left over. I'm gonna make some pumpkin pies. And then I was just like, oh, hello there, chicken bones from the roast chicken I made for the pies. I'm gonna turn you into soup.
You should clarify all the meat pies were tiny, but
yeah, they were only like 4 inches.
Remember how before the show we were talking about how like it's easy to look at other people, especially like other Catholics at Landmass, and be like, they have it all put together. I bet there are moms listening that are like, wow, she made 20 pies. She has everything together. Yeah. She's like the model perfect mom. She's the perfect wife. She knows how to do everything. And they're just so intimidated by you right now.
Oh, but don't be. I don't even think I remembered to put on deodorant today. Like, I forget to go to the bathroom. It's that bad. I'm just doing stuff and I'm on like a little bit of a coffee buzz or something like that. And I'm just like, zoom.
Wow. Yeah. If I could have a little bit of that energy, I would definitely take it.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Right. How much would you pay to be a choleric? Oh boy.
Oh man. Anyway, so that's how I am. Mike, how you doing? I haven't even asked you yet today.
Yeah. That's also what happens when you're manically cooking everything.
And today on CatholicCounselors.com.
Yeah.
Get Gregory Popchak
I ate delicious curry today, and I'm so happy. Also, I happen to be drinking beer.
That we made.
Yeah. It's a Belgian triple, which is the best beer. And yeah, it will make you strong And I'm pretty sure it has supernatural graces attached to it because it's an eminently Catholic beer.
And
I can't
it
prove
has like triple, right? So it has 3 in there
Yeah,
too.
there you go.
Yeah. If it doesn't make you strong, it will make you tired. Filioque, a beer made by Broken Mike.
Yes, that's it.
Chris, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, life's been pretty crazy. But our daughter is home and doing had an appointment today actually, and is doing really well. So yeah, thank you to everyone who may be listening who is praying for her. That means a lot. But yeah, no, it's just been a lot of work, and just kind of figuring out a rhythm again, because that's that's been a little tough, but we're figuring it out. So yeah.
You made me think back to the Canadianisms because you did but yeah, no in there.
Yes. Yes. That is another Canadianism. Uh-huh. Yep.
Yeah. You betcha. Yeah, we saw little Therese today after her appointment, and Julie said she's over 10 pounds now.
Yep.
She's doing great.
Yeah. So that's great. I mean, she is 8 months old. So, I mean, still tiny for an 8-month-old baby, but she was born at 3 pounds, 4 ounces. So yeah, there is that.
It's good to see her growing now since she's had so much trouble with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, praise God that, things worked out. I don't know if we even really told people, but on the podcast, I can't remember, but yeah, long story short, our daughter, who was born at 30 weeks, had a lot of trouble with feeding and growing. She wouldn't keep anything down, and she was just kind of being treated as a mystery. She was in NICU for 104 days, so it was quite a trying experience there. But when we brought her home, she was still having trouble, and then ended up going back to the hospital, and they discovered that she had a hiatus hernia, and that a sixth of her stomach was herniated and had shifted into her chest cavity. So it was a pretty significant defect. They ended up doing surgery, repairing that hernia, and in the process, finding out that she has a genetic defect as well, like a chromosomal defect, and it's called CHAMP1, which is a really rare, defect. Only 125 cases in the known world right now, so it's super rare, just like Therese. The doctors had said that they had never seen a hiatus hernia in a baby before at the hospital. So, I mean, she's all kinds of unique, and has started out her life dealing with a lot of suffering. So apparently God chose her to be his own, because she came right out of the womb into a bed of suffering. But like I said, she's doing a lot better now, and now we're the ones who get to suffer, because she's basically only feeding, or she's feeding on a feeding tube, like a G tube, every 3 hours. So it's like having a newborn for 8 months. So it's all kinds of rough, but God is getting us through. So
keep praying for Chris and Julie, guys.
Thanks.
And for little Therese.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And for John too. I mean,
who Mike basically said she's a little princess the other day. I heard it.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, look at him doting on little Therese. So cute. She's a little princess.
She's just adorable though.
Yeah. It was just so cute.
Yeah. It's actually wild. Like, we're part of a group on Facebook dedicated to those who have CHAMP1, and you can have different forms of it. Like, the chromosomal defect can either be a deletion or a mutation. In the case of Therese, it's a deletion. But in the cases of mutation, it can create all kinds of deformities and such. So looking at Therese, if you were just looking at her, if you didn't know that she was 8 months old, you'd look at her and go, what a beautiful, normal looking baby. You would have no idea that she had something going on, which is kind of a cool grace. That
she looks like a perfect, like 1 or 2 month old baby, right? Something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So, it's wild. And yeah, in terms of how it looks in the end, we'll see, it's all kind of in God's good hands in terms of how she grows and develops. We do our part and the rest is up to God and Therese. And, so, she's a bit behind in certain regards, but she's also doing well in other areas. So it's, she's just this beautifully unique little girl who God has a big plan for. And, I don't know what that looks like, but she's apparently, taken on the Carmelite spirit of redemptive suffering right from the get-go. So anyway, God bless her.
She's a special child who needs special love because she's going to be great. I just love that quote. Sorry. It's totally out of nowhere. Nobody understands where that's from.
I understand where it's from.
I understand where that's from.
Yeah.
Man. Okay. So, before we get into this, I just really want to read a quick thing. I'm going to read, just before we begin, I wanted to read one of the 5-star reviews that was left for us it was left on Apple Podcasts. So I just want to give a shout out. I don't know if we've read this one before, but it's from Nautical Rabbit. And thought we'd just give a quick shout out to Nautical Rabbit, who says about our podcast, quote, "This is a great podcast if you are interested in traditional Catholicism, love to laugh, and want to feel like you are involved in a conversation among friends. My favorite episodes are in the liturgical breakdown category, where they compare the TLM to the Novus Ordo and the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. Also, check out the anime episode and the episode on spiritual theology." So, shout out to Nautical Rabbit. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts right now, we'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review. So please, if you can do that, even just say, "Hey, love this episode." We'd love to hear it, and we'll share it on a future episode. Okay, so that's that.
Thanks, Nautical Rabbit.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
So, talking about stories of beginnings, on the Therese train, let's talk about a little bit about Mike's background and answer that question from Jen Van Awesome about, at what point did your faith become your own and not something inherited from your parents? So, yeah, Let's hear it, buddy.
There's a sub bullet on our notes under this that says confirmation ? Was that part of her question, or was that some one of us?
No, nope. I think
I can start out by saying not confirmation.
Yeah, I don't know. This wasn't part of Jen's question, Jen Van Awesome's question.
Okay. All right. Well, so the three of us are all raised Catholic, and I actually had a pretty good Catholic upbringing, I would say, in a lot of respects. Like, I had a full intact family. My there wasn't a lot of dysfunction going on. We were going to church every Sunday, and going to, government funded Catholic school, as you do in Canada, if you're not a rad trad like us. Yeah, so it was, obviously becoming a teenager, that you either have to make your faith your own, or you kind of question everything, right? And I would say I didn't really have a personal faith going into confirmation at all. And I didn't really do a lot outside of going to mass on Sunday and anything we did at school, which was not much. I didn't pray daily or anything other than grace before meals at home. So that was kind of the weakness, right? I didn't have any prayer life, and I didn't have any personal faith or relationship with God, even though I had all the sacraments and I'd been taught roughly at least what the church teaches. And I'd been going to mass. So I kind of had that teenage crisis of faith, and I was probably drifting into something like potential deism. And I was kind of at that point where my only prayer was God, are you actually real? And thankfully I had enough good influences in my life to be able to make that prayer, to be able to ask God to kind of make himself real in my life and to show me whether he was there or not. That kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, turning point, sign, basically came when we had the Net Ministries Life Teen group come to our Novus Ordo parish. And it's kind of funny, looking back on the moment. Today I would find it extremely cringeworthy. Back then, I didn't know anything about propriety in the liturgy, I guess. Just, growing up with a ton of liturgical abuses every Sunday and Novus Ordo and not knowing any better. I mean, seeing a bunch of teenagers come up and stand in front of the altar and do a little skit. It's so cheesy, but at the same time, I was just these are people who have the courage to go out there and actually talk about the faith. And that was kind of my answer, right? It was okay, I'll listen to these people and I'll find out if God is actually real or not. And that was just the beginning of the journey where, I started to actually find out about the teachings of the church and find the answers to all those little doubts and questions that you develop when you have that kind of foundation in the faith, where you're kind of taught roughly and you're participating, but you don't have any roots really, no intellectual rigor, no prayer life, no anything like that. So I had to develop both of those, right? They would get us into praying and going to adoration and singing worship music and stuff like that. And for me, that was a radical increase in my prayer life, from nothing to being able to go to adoration and pray. And then being able to talk to people about the questions of why does the church teach this? Is this really true? So that process kind of happened over my, I would say grade 10, 11, 15, 16, maybe 17 was kind of that gradual ownership and becoming more convinced of the faith personally.
Did you
That's kind
find
of
that
overview.
your conversion, so to speak, was an intellectual conversion more so than kind of like a light bulb turned on? Like it was, a lot of intellectual realization, like, oh, this does make sense now,
I would say it kind of had the two tracks at the same time. Like there was the kind of building of an actual relationship with our Lord through prayer, which I had never had before. And also the resolving of all these intellectual doubts and stuff. These kind of happened hand in hand, right? But on both accounts, it was more of a gradual process. So there wasn't really a miraculous eureka moment or anything like that. The closest thing was that moment where these teenagers showed up at the parish, and I remember thinking, I need to talk to these people and seek out the answers. Because if God is actually real, I think he's telling me this is where I need to pursue to find the answers that I'm looking for. So either I'll find nothing there or I will find God, right? So that was kind of a turning point, but from there it was a journey, right?
So I need to kind of share my experience with meeting you. So when I first encountered you, it was, I guess the net team probably showed up October-ish at the parish. And then, and I met you in March, the following March. And like, I think it was like maybe even April, May before I got involved in the music ministry and stuff. And when I met you, my reaction to you was this guy is serious. This guy is all in. This guy loves God. And, yeah, his taste in music sucks, but I mean, like, just kidding. I love
it. It did.
Wrecked. But it was, there was that, at least from my perception, I was like, this dude sold out for the Lord. And that was in March. I didn't really get a sense that you were still questioning at that point. Were you? Like in a big way? Or was it kind of like at that point, do you think you were like pretty much sold?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because like my memory's notoriously bad. So I would never, like, if you asked me, what part of the year did I meet you? No idea. But
it was a
yeah,
cold,
it's
cold
interesting
Sunday in March. I remember it fondly.
Yeah. I mean, once you kind of get these questions answered and you kind of think, yeah, this is good. This is something to do. Like, it's easy to become passionate too with like a thing like a net team where everyone's super into it. So I think, yeah, even if there were more internal questions, I think there would still, like, I was kind of investing into that culture of like basically giving this my best shot kind of thing. And I think even like a lot of serious doubts and things like that were cleared up quickly in the first few months. And then it was more of a gradual process of like strengthening that kind of start, right? And again, I don't know what part of the year this is because I don't have that kind of memory, but there's another one of the big turning points is the night where they taught us about confession. And I was like, oh, I haven't been to confession in like several years. Because like, typical Novus Ordo kind of family, right? Like we all consider ourselves good Catholics. We have no idea that there's such a thing as a precept of the church that we're supposed to go to confession every single year. Yeah. I don't think, like, I'm not trying to dunk on my parents because I love them so very much, but I don't think they were aware of this kind of thing, right? That's just not in the culture of like your Novus Ordo parish. The priests are not saying, remember to get to confession during Lent or during Advent because you have to go every year. The church teaches that it's a grave sin not to. No one was saying that to them. Right.
To be fair, they have that like 2 or 3 days of the year where it's like, all right, we're going to do confession on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Come on out. It's like, if nobody go, like, if you miss it, you miss it. And then they think, oh, I'll just catch the next year.
Yeah. And they have, if they preach about that day, they have an excessive emphasis on the positive, right? It's just like, oh, it's such a nice, good thing to do. But no one would want to be so harsh as to say it would be a mortal sin not to go to confession for an entire year. No one would want to be so harsh as to like, preach about hell or anything like that. But anyway, this is just the culture of the Catholicism in which I was brought up. And I mean, as a teenager, I was also involved in some serious sinful stuff, right? So I had a lot to bring to confession that first time after going for several years, right? Not going for several years. So that was a huge turning point too, right? Like I feel like after making the commitment to be like, I'm going to confess all these things that the church says is wrong that I've been doing, and I'm actually going to try to stop doing all these things. That's at that point, you could say that I was bought into Catholicism, right? I was actually like, I believed it. I was going to try to be a good Catholic, right? So maybe that was within the months before I met you. Oh, I don't remember you being there then.
No, I don't remember that night at all.
So. Yeah.
Now let's quickly hop into your college years, university years. Because I think, at least from my experience, again, right, outsider looking in, there was obviously this move. You kind of mentioned that experience of, Life Teen and the Net Team being there and the hype that was surrounded this group. And we know for a fact that there was it was a decently large youth group for, the Diocese of London at that time. And there were only really a select few of us that remained grounded in the faith after that Net Team left. Sadly, that was just the case. Mm-hmm. But in college and university for you, was there a, I'm trying to think of the word. Was there a support there for you that kind of kept things going, that kind of pushed you even further, in the faith post Life Teen?
Yeah, definitely. There were definitely some key figures there as influences. And later on, there was a community that I found in the Rosary group in Elmira. The first year, I remember going to daily mass on, this is University of Waterloo campus. And the masses they have on that campus are ultra weird.
That's a charitable way of putting it.
I remember sometimes going to daily mass, and I mean, they have the whole like at communion time, everyone come up into the sanctuary and stand around kind of thing. It was super weird. I remember going to their Sunday mass. This is St. Jerome's, which is allegedly a Catholic college on Waterloo campus. I remember a priest there preaching about how miracles aren't real. It's like a really sorry, were you gonna say something, Chris?
No, I was just gonna say cringe.
Yeah, super cringe. I remember trying to talk to that priest after mass and give some like little suggestion of like, hey, that's like not right at all. Why did you say that? And he just kind of laughed it off, and I was like, this is so awkward. I'm gonna leave. So everything basically on Waterloo campus was a huge bust in the beginning. Even like I was not trad at this point by any means. I was like a life teen kid. But going to this mass, it was like peak cringe, non-Catholic boomer mass type material. Even I could tell this is heresy, and I can't take it. It was so bad. So luckily we have a sister kind of university. Actually, it's not a sister university, but it's like a different one that's next door. It's really weird in Waterloo, Ontario. There's Laurier University. And I don't know why the city developed two universities that are like a block apart that are actually not related to each other. But anyway, I had some connections there. Like my best friend growing up went there. The local parish, St. Michael's, was across the street from that school. So I went over there. I heard they had adoration, I think. I'm pretty sure that's where I ended up going over there and got hooked up with that group. Laurier at the time had an amazing chaplain, and I'll give her a shout out. Her name's Anya Krischuk, and she's great. And she was the one who provided some semblance of Catholicism for the students at those two universities by bringing a priest from downtown onto campus to do adoration and confession once a week. Things were pretty cringe aside from that. And just to illustrate how bad things were, in order to do adoration and confession, we had to rent the Anglican chapel, even though there was a Catholic church across the street. The priest there didn't want us having adoration because he was more into like yoga and stuff. That's not even a joke. He literally was into yoga.
What the lump?
Yeah.
A joke.
I mean, it is a joke, but it's a joke because it's reality and truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Anyway, that's how I got connected to the more faithful side of Novus Ordo Catholics in Kitchener-Waterloo at the time, and started going to a weekly rosary group and going to adoration and having regular confession and stuff like that.
Cool. Again, talking about my side of things, because it was really cool at the time, because you and I still remained friends throughout this process, right? We had been in a couple bands, following, and just remained buddies, remained friends throughout, and would hang out with each other. And like I'd drive up to Waterloo and hang out with you and stuff, and you'd come back and hang out with me. But like, I really felt like for me in that time, that friendship with you was so key, because like you and I would be bouncing questions off each other all the time, or like making comments about things, sharing things that we were learning, and like just riffing on each other. And like there was that open communication too, which made it really, I don't know, it was just really important for me at that time too, because, and I'll share my story later on, but like there was a point where my faith took a hit, and I needed people like you in my life to encourage me to keep going and to keep seeking and to, forgive and to move on and grow. But I mean, I think there's such that necessity for friendship in, like I look at our friends that left the faith, and there's always one key element that is missing in their lives. And it's, they didn't have good and holy friendships. They didn't remain connected to the faithful. They just kind of went solo and slowly drifted out to sea. And, it's really difficult to get them back. I don't know. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, although we weren't seeing each other all the time, we were always in contact over this time. Right. And, it was a really important friendship. I remember like you asking me about all kinds of different things, and it's mutually important to have that support and good friendship from someone who knows where you come from and stuff like that. I remember too, you, was that when you were on net when I was in Waterloo, or was that earlier than that?
I was on net, I think, when you were in grade 12.
Oh, okay. No, so it wasn't there in that time.
But I was at Franciscan.
But that was also like kind of a similar vibe, I guess, right? Because you're at a far distance in Ottawa. So for a long time, like we had kind of a long distance friendship.
Yeah. Yeah, really. That's
on MSN and stuff all the time.
Yep. And then it grew into over Xbox chat, Xbox 360.
Oh yeah.
Chat. I mean, and I think maybe that's another side comment we can make too. I think it's really important to have Catholic friends, but if all you can talk about is the faith, like get a hobby. And I think like that's kind of been our experience. Like you and I can have talked about music for, 15 years. And we had similar love in video games back then. And I'm still whooped by you every single time we play Halo. It doesn't change. But I mean, now we can, play tabletop RPGs and watch cool movies or whatever, and talk about that stuff too, and talk about parenting now, which is such a stupid hobby.
We're so old.
But, yeah. So no, I think it's just so important. Like it was so necessary for me to have that friendship and to remain locked in. Because it's really an anchor, man. Like, especially when you start going down the rabbit hole of doubt and, and desolation and all of that. And
the other thing I'll say about these college years on a different tack is you can see the seeds of how I was forced to eventually become trad because of the influence of all these flaming liberals in the church, right? I mean, I've talked in the past about how at our Life Team parish, one of those seeds was planted by the fact that the church had to tell us to stop standing up around the altar every mass. And how I remember thinking like, shouldn't Father have known that we're not allowed to do this? And why didn't he tell us we're not supposed to do that? And that kind of was another awkward moment when you go off to college, you go to mass at the chapel on campus, and they're doing the same thing. Like, can we have some consistency here, guys? Like, it's not that hard to figure out how to say mass respectfully. And then, yeah, I mean, crank it up to 11 when you find out that the parish across from the university, that priest is more interested in like setting up yoga and stuff like that than letting us do adoration in the church, and like, you know, won't let the campus minister into his church because she's like doing Catholic stuff. Just like, I mean, I feel like for a certain time I was in that bubble where like it's just the priests all know what they're talking about, and there's nothing wrong in the church and everything's fine. But you start to see things that are on fire, and then you think, hey, doesn't this diocese have a bishop that should do something if like the priest is more interested in yoga than saving the souls of these students? And you find out this priest is like the bishop's best friend, and then you start to realize there's something terribly wrong.
Yeah. And I think this is something that I've said in previous episodes, but the thing that drew me to the faith initially, and the thing that still draws me to the faith, in particular the traditional faith, is the ability to question why. Like, there is in an essence, like in this kind of more modern, you know, Vatican II, whatever you want to call it, you know, post-conciliar church, that's because I said so, because the council said so, appeals to authority, to ultramontanist, you know, stuff. And it's like, that's never been the Catholic way of doing things. You know, there is obviously, you know, dogma and stuff that we believe in, and we're called to have, you know, assent to, but like in terms of other things, having that ability just to question and to discuss openly and be willing to have the conversation without beating each other up. I mean, Catholic Twitter aside, the reality is that the church has been like this for 2,000 years. Look at the councils. Look at the way that they worked through these different heresies and came to a fuller, you know, expression of the true faith. Like, yeah, just that ability to question still just, I mean, brings me back to the faith every time. Yeah. And it's unfortunate, like, that sometimes the question why is because you're being scandalized by the lack of faith, the lack of supernatural faith, of priests, prelates, whatever, in the church.
Yeah, this was something that was really important in those, especially in those college days when, like, I wanted to dig deeper into things, and when I was starting to notice some of the dumpster fires, like good Catholic influences encouraging me with the idea that, like, you can question and you can honestly look into things and do your research, and the faith is going to have an answer. The church has faced so many questions and heresies and things in the past. I mean, It's kind of like that thing with the new atheists, right? Like every argument they come up with, Thomas Aquinas has answered like 700 years ago. But, like,
Yeah, 3 times over.
but but it was kind of the same with, my average question or thing I wanted to look deeper into as a college student, right? Like the saints and the doctors of the church and the councils have dug into this topic before me. I'm not coming up with anything original.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you're not special when it comes to this stuff. You're just not. And like I think it's a tactic of the devil to make people think that they are unique in their questioning, to make them just kind of puff up with pride. And it's like, every time you turn to the church, she has an answer. You have to look, you have to do your research, but she has the answer somewhere. Whether it's in the fathers, whether it's, in the catechisms, it's there. Yeah. Amazing. So I guess let's just quickly cap it off. Where is your faith today? Like where do you stand on, I don't know, how would you describe where you're at today in your faith?
Today, well, I'm here to announce that I'm now a Hindu. No, actually. So now, trying to be a glad trad and trying to learn how to pray. That's still the journey. Like this year has so far been about learning how to pray for me. I've been going through a couple of books about mental prayer and trying to figure out how to make it a part of my life. But now it's like doubts and stuff like that are not really a big part. Now it's like enduring the weirdness and persecution of being a traditional Catholic today, and then trying to deepen my prayer life and actually move further into that relationship with our Lord and not kind of get stuck in just going through the motions. That's kind of where the battle is today for me.
Awesome. Praise God, man. Like it's awesome. Yeah. It's been an honor. Just saying, it's an honor to know you and to see what God has done since we were teenagers. I mean, it's long gone are the days of, Linkin Park stickers on our electric guitars and screaming, doing screamo in the basement of your parents' house and stuff like that. Yeah. Long gone are the days.
I still have bad taste in music though. I found out, okay, here's just to scandalize people with a thing that happened recently. So my album of the year, I had Era in there. And just like a couple weeks ago, they came out with a new song and I was just like, I'll check it out.
I heard it first and I was just like, Mike, I'm just saying, Era dropped this song and it's like super sketchy, like really sketchy.
So they did a cover of a Nine Inch Nails song and I was reading the lyrics and I was like, wait, I know this song from high school. This is the one that like all the high school atheists were into because it's just like all blasphemy and stuff. It's horrendous. And I was just like, how can you guys do this to me after I loved your last album, you jerks? So now I'm afraid if someone listens to that podcast and they're like, I'll check out this band, there's like this horrendously blasphemous song they just put out. This is why I should never recommend a secular band. This is what they're going to do to me.
To be fair, though, even August Burns Red did a cover of that System of a Down song.
Oh, I hate that song. Chop Suey.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, Chop Suey. I
man.
listened to that song in high school. So you know what? It's the
Me
equivalent.
too.
Okay.
Yeah. But like
Everyone makes mistakes.
It's worse for August Burns Red. I think if I remember the quote from Chris, it was Protestants don't have the virtue of religion anyway.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sorry.
But like, I mean, August Burns Red was at one point a Christian band, and like half the band is apostatized already.
Yeah.
So they're not really a Christian band, although I think some of the members would still say they are. But the fact that they like cover this kind of blasphemous song was really disappointing.
Oh yeah. I was mad. I
I hate it.
Yeah. Why you gotta do this to us guys, you know? But that's it. But again, it's kind of interesting. We were just random side note. We were talking about this a little bit with Tim before about kind of like the implosion of Protestants right now and their faith. There is so much deconstruction, quote unquote, going on. You've got people like, Audrey Assad from the Catholic side, but you got like Derek Webb and like the Dudes from Emory and like all like just it's everywhere. And it's when you don't have that firm grounding in the faith, in like the intellectual rigor, like you were talking about, like when you don't actually have like that plus the sacramental grace, like you're doomed. Either you're going to become
a house built on sand just cannot survive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we're in a cultural hurricane right now.
Yeah.
Just a cultural storm against the faith. The attacks keep stepping up every year, every month.
Yeah.
Just more and more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but again, there is so much importance to having that grounding, especially if you're like in a good place in your faith right now and things are easy, like this is the time when you just jam pack your life full of the truth, with, catechetically good stuff, because there will come a time when it's going to get difficult and there will be doubt and there will be, darkness and confusion and struggle and all of that. And, like you need to be able to go back to that stuff and be able to ask why and have an intellectually good answer. Because it does get tough, and especially as you go deeper in the interior life, the spiritual warfare, everything like that ramps up and it gets even more nuanced and the attacks become even more insidious. And like, you got to be ready. So what's that term? Joan up, as they say, Brooke.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jonah.
I see what you did there.
Joan up.
No. Joan up.
Joan up.
Like Saint Joan of Arc. Joan up.
Yeah, I was trying to say it French. Like Jeanne d'Arc.
Jeanne.
Oh, what are you, Canadian or something?
Yeah,
Fine.
No.
Fine, forget I said anything. I'm sorry.
All right, you guys. Well, Mike, thanks for sharing your story, buddy. That was great.
Yeah. Mike, like, I don't know. My story's so boring. 20 years later.
Goes on for a whole episode.
Yeah. Awesome.
Open mic with Mike.
Okay. Open mic.
Drinking.
Yeah.
That's a rhetorical question because we have. But, yeah.
One beer shared. Okay.
One
Yeah.
beer,
So was that
one
your
buddy.
segue to me?
Pardon?
I think we are already done an episode.
We're
to be
done.
honest.
This is done.
Okay.
We are tapping out. So, Mike already got the vibe that I was switching into outro mode.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't sure.
But we're gonna get into your story next week, Brooke. Don't you even worry about it.
Mine is so different.
That's good.
Probably way more disappointing.
All 4 of the stories are going to be way different, I feel.
Wildly
Yeah.
different. Yeah, absolutely. So, but God works in the soul of each person differently. And, and that's what makes the faith beautiful, because we're not all the same, like you should know what Saint Therese says, right? About the flowers, like not everybody can be a rose. And so, I feel like I'm a Venus flytrap, but hey.
I'm a corpse flower. The corpse flower, it takes like a million years to bloom, and then when it does, it smells really bad. Look it up. It's a thing.
There's also that flower in Dennis the Menace. You remember that movie?
What
I don't remember.
I don't remember. Where
I'll look it up.
Mr. Wilson has this flower that he's been, cultivating for, years and years and years. And it's like the one day that it's going to bloom, and then Dennis the Menace ruins it. Yeah. And like he has like the press is there ready to take pictures, and like he has this huge garden party, and like everybody's there, and Dennis ruins the whole thing. And anyway, if you haven't seen Dennis the Menace, it's a great movie. Anyways, all right, guys. Well, thank you everybody for listening to today's podcast. We'd love to know your story about how God has worked in your life. So please let us know your thoughts. Visit us on social media. You can find us at Stay Tratty on Twitter, or at Theology of the Buddy everywhere else. And also, please, we'd love for you to subscribe. You can subscribe to us on all of the major podcast platforms. And yeah, our next episode will be coming out in 2 weeks. So make sure you're subscribed so you know when it comes out. And until then,
Stay tratty.
Tratty.